The New York Mets had another solid weekend of baseball, taking 2 of 3 against the Miami Marlins, and the one game they lost was against the best pitcher in baseball. On the show today, I'll talk about what we saw this weekend, but I also want to focus in on Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor, who have proven so far this year to be the best run-producing duo in all of baseball.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Now, the Mets opened up their series on Friday night, the first time they would face the Miami Marlins this season, beginning a stretch where they played the Marlins, or they will play the Marlins 11 times over a 21-game span, and it got off to a great start as the Mets blew them out on Friday 10-4. Carlos Carrasco was on the mound, looked really good early, and he got some early run support because in the first inning, Francisco Lindor hit a 3-run homer. Lindor was surprised by his wife with his mother for the first time at Citi Field. She got to watch her son play, and he obviously rewarded her with just an amazing series altogether. First 3 games of a series, as the Mets will still play the Marlins on Monday. But Carlos Carrasco only gives up a home run in the 5th there when it comes to the early innings, and that was before the Mets just broke the game wide open. Carrasco ultimately gives up 3, but it didn't matter because the Mets put together a 7-run rally in the 6th inning, which was capped off by a grand slam from Pete Alonso, which effectively ended the game. You go to the second game of the series. Taiwan Walker was excellent. Recently, I haven't had the most glowing reviews of Taiwan Walker. I've been one to say he gets by in smoke and mirrors. The lack of strikeouts concern me. Through his first 9 starts this year, he only had 25 strikeouts. But over his last 2, he has made me eat my words entirely. He is pitching fantastic right now. Goes 6 2/3. Allowed just 2 hits and 1 run with 1 walk, but had 9 strikeouts. He has 19 strikeouts over his last 2 starts, and now his ERA on the season is at 2.88. So he continues to be one of the better starting pitchers on the Mets. I mean, really, if you look at what he's done this year, you could probably make an argument he's maybe been the second best pitcher to Carlos Carrasco, and maybe even third, I guess, to Max Scherzer in a more limited sample. He's been really effective. So shout out to Taiwan Walker for making me look stupid. I love when a Mets player who I criticize makes me look dumb. I'll never complain about that at all. Now, Jeff McNeil in this game got the Mets going offensively with a 2-out RBI single in the second. Then in the bottom of the third, Francisco Lindor, once again showing off for his mom, hit a 2-run homer. And that really was the difference in the game. Drew Smith came on, and he was very good. He bailed Taiwan Walker out. I'm getting him out of some trouble with the final out in the 8th. Edwin Diaz gave up a pair of singles in the 9th, but ultimately strikes out 3 en route to his 14th save of the season. And Diaz, we have to talk about right now as being the most dominant pitcher in baseball when it comes to strikeouts. His strikeout rate of 48.6% is the best in baseball by far. There's only one other pitcher over 40%. And then you have his 17.5 strikeout per 9 is also the best mark in baseball, which obviously those two numbers really align with each other. It's just a different way to explain the amount of strikeouts. But when you're talking about your closer going out there and striking out essentially 1 out of every 2 batters he faces, that's going to lead to a lot of success. And he has been great for the Mets this year. And that win gave the Mets not only 2 in a row, or at least, what was that, maybe 3 in a row. Now I'm thinking back to it with that Brewers series. But more importantly, the Braves lost the first 2 games of their series against the Cubs. So the Mets picked up 2 games the first 2 days, and they did exactly what we said they had to do going into the series. If they were to win Friday and Saturday night, that game against Sandy Alcantara wasn't as big of a deal because Alcantara is the best pitcher in baseball right now, and you knew it was going to be a tough task to beat him. If the Mets had lost one of those first two games, they'd be going into this final game of the series on Monday, down 1-2, looking to just split the series. Now they've already at least cemented the series split. You have to try to get a series victory against a team like the Marlins. I think what we've seen this weekend, even with the one victory I'm about to talk about in the next segment here, the Mets are a much better baseball team than the Marlins. And really, it's not even that close. So you look at this upcoming stretch here where they're going to continue to play the Marlins a bunch. I wouldn't necessarily set an exact win total on it, but they shouldn't lose a series to the Marlins this year. That's how good this Mets team is. Now, they might, you lose a series to anyone. You can lose a series to the worst team in baseball. And the Marlins certainly aren't that. Their pitching is still very good, especially with Alcantara. But this is a team that the Mets can't let, win, let's just say 9 games out of their 19 this year. They have to, beat up on them a little bit because they certainly are a class below the Braves. And unfortunately, even though I have been a proponent of the Marlins coming into the year, the more I see them, I mean, that lineup, it might even put them a tier below the Phillies as well. But they did find a way to get a victory on Sunday. I'll talk about that. I'll talk about what lies ahead on Monday as the Mets close out this series in just a minute. But our next partner has a product that I literally use every day now, and that is Athletic Greens, because I wanted to find a way to get a bunch of vitamins and nutrients into my diet. And I didn't want to take a million different pills or different supplements. I wanted an all-encompassing way to get that nutrition into my diet. And with one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens every morning in a cold glass of water, I absorb 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens that start my day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, your recovery, your focus, and aging. Athletic Greens has over 7,000 five-star reviews and is recommended by pro athletes. It costs you less than $3 a day, making it cheaper than your cold brew habit. It's the single best thing you can do for your body in under 60 seconds. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of their immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/MLB network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Now let's talk about the final game of the weekend. Sandy Alcantara beats the Mets. No shame in that at all. Chris Bassett did look good early on in this start, really matching zeros with Alcantara through 6. Bassett had allowed just 3 hits, 1 walk, and 9 strikeouts. And the Mets gave him a lead in the bottom of the 6th, actually, as Starling Marte hit a triple. Francisco Lindor drove him in with a base hit. But then in the top of the 7th, Bassett seemed to run out of gas a bit. Suddenly, he was taking a little bit more time in between pitches, trying to outthink these batters, and he just didn't seem to have that ace stuff anymore. Gave up a couple of hits, walked a batter to load the bases. Buck Showalter goes to Seth Lugo to try to get out of the jam, and of course, he's unable to do that. You have Gerard Encarnacion, the rookie for the Marlins, and you were looking at this lineup, and it was a terrible lineup. Not that their lineup is ever great, but it was really bad with Garrett Cooper having a day off. Who else did we not see? Jesus Aguilar. They still have Brian Anderson and Joey Wendell on the IL. So there is a better version of the Marlins than we saw this weekend. And this was just the BCD lineup, whatever you want to call it. To have Avisail Garcia batting 3rd, to have Miguel Rojas batting cleanup, and Lewin Diaz batting 5th, that is the opposite of a murderer's row. But there was one name in the lineup that I was worried about all day, because you had a kid making his debut in Encarnacion, and he hits a grand slam. Opposite field, takes Seth Lugo deep, and that ultimately was the ball game. Very similar to when Pete Alonso hit that grand slam that at the time on Saturday, or was it? That was a Friday night game. That put the Mets up 10-1. It felt like the same type of a lead with Alcantara on the mound. To just have a 4-1 lead seemed insurmountable. Then the Marlins tack on another against Lugo as he gives up an RBI double in that inning as well. And it was just too big of a hole to climb out of when you still had to face the best pitcher in baseball over 2 of those final 3 innings. The Mets did a good job, though. They fought, and you got to give them credit. they never give up on any game. So in the bottom of the seventh, they get one back right away. Jeff McNeil has a leadoff double. Louis Guillorme drives him in with a base hit. So you cut one of those runs off. It was 5-2, but that ultimately was all the Mets would be able to do offensively. I'll even give Tomas Nido credit, though, in that seventh inning. He struck out, but he fouled off 5 pitches before he struck out for a 7-pitch at bat, and that did drive up the pinch count on Alcantara. And they were able to get him out for the ninth inning. He was only at 106 pitches thrown, that they probably could have thrown him back out there. But since the Marlins picked up an insurance run in the top of the ninth, I think Mcneil felt comfortable going to the bullpen there. They go to their closer, and Pete Alonso and Jeff McNeil both drew walks. So again, the Mets show fight, but unable to get any closer, and they ultimately lose that game. Now, for the final game of this series, the Mets now have a chance to win another one. They got two lefties squaring off, Trevor Rogers versus David Peterson. Peterson has a 3.60 ERA on the season. Rogers, a 5.87 ERA. Last year, Rogers, though, had the Mets number. In 2 starts against the Mets, he ended up only giving up 1 run for an ERA of, I think, 0.87 over 11 innings pitched, had 16 strikeouts and just 2 walks. A really tough left-hander when he's right, but this year he hasn't been right pretty much at all. He's walking 4.70 batters per 9, the most of his entire professional career. So he's never even been this wild in the minor leagues. A 1.64 whip. That shows you how much traffic has been on the bases when Rogers has been on the mound. And so the Mets have a chance here. They do, if they can go out and they can give a bunch of professional at-bats and make this guy work, they can have a lot of traffic on the bases, and they could put up runs in a hurry. The good news, though, is the Braves lost the first 2 games of their series against the Cubs. Last I checked, they're winning 6-0 heading into the ninth. So I imagine they close that one out. And when they do, the Mets gain a game back over the weekend. They're now 5.5 games up in this division. Atlanta will begin a 4-game set on Monday against the Giants before the Dodgers come into town for 3. So it's a really tough week for the Braves. The Mets have 1 against the Marlins, 2 against the Astros. They then have a day off, and they play 3 more in Miami against the Marlins. So 4 of their 6 games this week against this Marlins team that we just saw, the Mets are definitely better than. This is a chance for them to get back up and extend that division lead a little bit over the Braves, assuming they have the troubles you would expect them to have against 2 of the better teams in baseball in the Dodgers and the Giants. But what I want to talk about to close out the show today is the 2 best run producers in the sport as far as on the same team, a tandem of RBI machines, Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso. I want to talk about how they stack up to other duos in baseball and really just compare what they've done this year to what they did last year leading this Mets ball club. But BetOnline.net is your number 1 source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find out the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NHL playoffs and Major League Baseball. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite sports events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So as I record this right now, Pete Alonso currently has the MLB lead in RBIs at 63, 1 ahead of Jose Ramirez. And as I say this, I know they're still playing the Dodgers. He probably just drove in 3 more runs. Paul Goldschmidt has 58. Then you have CJ Cron and Francisco Lindor tied at 52. So the Mets have 2 of the top 4 RBI producers in the entire sport right now. Their combined RBI total is 115. That's the best mark of any duo in the game. The next closest is Aaron Judge and Anthony Rizzo. 50 RBIs for Judge, 48 from Rizzo, 98 combined. You see the difference there with the Mets group? to see Alonso Lindor driving runs like this, it's insane. You look at Giancarlo Stanton has 42 RBIs. So you think, okay, well, that's the best trio, right? They got 3 guys over 40. Well, their 140 RBIs still trails the Mets when it comes to a trio because you have Starling Marte, who has 35 RBIs, giving the Mets 150 from their top 3 run producers. Last year, Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor combined for 157 RBIs in 277 games played between the 2 of them. This year, they're talking about 115 runs driven in, over 134 games played between the both of them. They've each played 67 of the Mets' 68 games. They've had injuries. How many times have each of them been hit by pitches? Lindor slams his finger in a hotel door, and yet every single day they're out there. Every single day they're in the middle of this lineup. And they are just producing at a rate that has the Mets, in a completely different stratosphere offensively than they've been in years past, particularly than they were last season in Lindor's first year with the Mets. It's just a different ball club, and it comes down to these guys not only hitting their home runs and coming through, but it's just the clutch gene that each of them has had, and it carries you. In this series, the Mets don't win it, or I mean, I guess they haven't won the series yet. They've won 2 of the first 3, but they don't win those first 2 games if not for Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor. And it's only been a game for each of them when they've been out, but when they have been out, in that one game, you felt that the complexion of the lineup was completely different, particularly in the game that Pete wasn't around. So you look at where the Mets are this season, and these 2 guys are heading towards all-star games. I think it's almost definite that both of them make the team. I think Lindor will start. Alonso may start. Paul Goldschmidt has just been so good this year that there's no way of knowing if he's actually going to get that nod, but they're both going to be there. And at the end of the year, these are guys that will compete for, silver sluggers. We'll see if Pete Alonso can ever overtake Paul Goldschmidt when it comes to their offensive seasons. Lindor right now, arguably having the best offensive season of any shortstop in the National League. Trey Turner in the conversation as well. But what they're doing right now as leaders and almost co-captains of this Mets team has been incredible to watch. I think it's probably very reminiscent for those of you who are around to watch the Keith Hernandez, Gary Carter duo of 1986. My lifetime, whether it was Beltran Delgado, Wright Beltran, whatever combination you want to talk about. I mean, I'm trying to think in 2015, it was Cespedes and everybody else, right? But this is a really special duo right now. And I think the beautiful thing about it is not only are they going to be together this year, but they can continue to produce in this lineup for years to come. Not only have they been great run producers, but also I just wanted to note their home runs and runs scored totals as well. They have 30 of the Mets' 64 home runs on the season between the 2 of them, and they only trail Starling Marte in runs scored. Marte, 44 runs scored, Lindor at 43, Alonso at 42. We'll see if the 2 of them can combine once again, facing off against Trevor Rogers to close out this series. A big final game here. You want to win this one, get things off on the right footing for the week. Then you got the 2 against the Astros. If you can at least split those, you'll feel good. And then you'll head into a weekend series in Miami and look to try to close things out and continue to maintain this lead of the division. Anyway, that's going to be all for today's edition of Locked On Mets. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft. The first picks of the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft have been made. If you search now for the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft, you can get over 50 insiders, the Odyssey sports experts, the draft experts of the Locked On NBA Big Board. This 5-episode Ultimate NBA Mock Draft is already underway. Make sure you check that out for your second listen today.